where I see the future coming, right? That you have to create applications that are multi-chain aware, that maybe you're using Moonbeam without knowing that you're using Moonbeam.
Hello guys, Chris from Polkadot Insider. Today with me is a very special guest, Orbital Relation at Moonbeam Network. And nice to have you here, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. It's super exciting to meet in Token 2049 in Singapore. So yeah, thanks again for the invitation.
Okay. So I'm curious to know that Moonbeam have a booth as Token 2049, right? So how it's like? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so we were part of like the Polkadot booth initiative, and it was fun. There was a lot of traffic today, which was encouraging. This is my first time in Singapore, my first time in Token 2049, and the event was like massive. It's super big. I've been to a lot of other events, and I would say this has been the biggest one that I've ever been. It was super crowded. A lot of people came asking about Moonbeam, which is pretty encouraging, right? So it's good to see.
Oh, that's cool. So before we go to the main interviews, let's talk about yourself first. What's your background before joining Moonbeam, and why you choose Moonbeam as the destination for contribute for Web3 industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So I am a mechanical engineer. So I finished high school and I decided to study mechanical engineer in Venezuela. So I'm original from Venezuela. So I did 5 years of mechanical engineer, and I wanted to leave the country, and so I got a PhD grant to study internal combustion engines. That's super weird, not related to the Web3 space. You're like, this guy is actually working on Web3, right? So after I finished my 5-year PhD in internal combustion engines, I started working at Nissan, and I was like, this is not really for me. Yeah, Nissan, they have a research center in Barcelona, in Spain. And so I started working there, and I really quickly realized that was not for me. It's a very big corporation. And so, I've been in crypto for a very long time. So I as learning about the space, not really like investing or anything. So in 2013, my brother introduced me to Bitcoin. So I was learning about it, reading about it, understand how it works. And so I was very interested, and I read about Ethereum very early on. So I was like, playing with smart contracts and things, very basic, try to understand how it works, but I never worked on it.
Yeah.
And so when I started working at Nissan, this was in 2019, I was like, nah, this is not for me. I want to go full-time programming, do programming and everything. And my brother told me, my oldest brother, Alberto, but you really like Web3, you're always reading about it. You're always telling me about it. Why don't you try to find a job at Web3? And I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't know. I'm a bit sort of don't know where to start. And it's like, well, I know Derek. So Derek, which is the founder of Moonbeam, he used to be my oldest brother, old boss, back in Web2. And so my brother was like, well, I know Derek. He used to be my boss, and he has a Web3 company. I can just introduce you to him. And so this is when Moonbeam was not even an idea. So it was still being sort of thought about. And so I spoke with Derek in January 2020, and he kind of mentored me to how to learn Web3. And then, 5 months later, he was like, I have this project called Moonbeam. It's not even we've not even started with it, but I want you to join as a developer relations, because I do have a background in teaching, and I like teaching a lot. I like speaking. I like trying to explain complicated things. And so DevRel, it's supposed to do that, supposed to grab complex things and make sure that they're digestible in easy terminology. And yeah, so now, I joined the team in June 2020, and now we are a team of 4 engineers, including myself, which is basically dedicated to developer relations on Moonbeam.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know that, so dev relation is very hard, right? Because it's a combination between communication and dev, right? So what is your challenge in this, when you're doing this job?
That's a good question. So I think one of the main reasons why I love DevRel is because it's every day it's very different, right? It's very challenging, like you said. We take DevRel really seriously. So we are actually engineers that are working as developer relations, in which we part of the thing that we do is understand the code without being blockchain developers, but we try to understand the code from a technical perspective so that we can help community of developers, community of people that want to be built on Moonbeam, right? But we also participate in events like this because we're the technical front end of the project, right? We know how to explain Moonbeam from a technical perspective, from a very deep technical perspective, from a very sort of high level perspective. So that's what I like about DeFi. It's very different every day, and you have different challenges and different things. And so that makes it challenging. And you also have that human contact, right? I mean, you get to speak with people, while if you're a core developer, you don't really do it, right? So it's a good combination, I would say.
Okay. So Moonbeam is all about cross-chain, right? So, like right now, the future of blockchains will be a lot of multi-chains, and there will be millions of chains. So the things when it comes to million of chains is that people have to bridge assets between different chains, and so Moonbeam is a smart contract platform for building cross-chain connected application, right? So it would be between all the ecosystem and all the chains that build on top of Polkadot. So I'm curious to know what it's all about. Like, do you have anything that you have to considering, and is there any challenges that you might have?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm gonna take a step back, right? So, I mean, Moonbeam, it's a parachain in the Polkadot ecosystem that its main purpose is to sort of like be the most Ethereum compatible blockchain for Polkadot, right?
Yeah.
Or in Polkadot. But that doesn't mean we're bounded to Polkadot, right? I mean, you can see Moonbeam as an EVM that provides a top level Ethereum compatible environment with extra services that they are served indirectly by Polkadot and the ecosystem of blockchains, right? But then, like you said, I think the future is going to be multi-chain. There's going to be many blockchains out there inside of Polkadot, outside of Polkadot, and they're going to need to be connected, right? And so the idea of connectivity will be that it will be something that end users won't really need to understand.
Yeah.
There will be just like blockchains interacting in a trustless, decentralized way, working together to provide experiences for users, right? And so Moonbeam is really well positioned because of multiple things, right? So we built for Ethereum compatibility, meaning that Ethereum developers have the best tech, have the best tech stack. It might not be the best in terms of technology, but it has so many tools, so many things that developers have at their disposal to build with.
Yeah.
And so that makes it years ahead of the competition, right? And so that's why we bet on the EVM. But then, we are connected to all the major chains through GMP protocols like Wormhole, Axelar, Layer 0, Hyperlane, and others, right? And so at the end of the day, Moonbeam is not isolated, right? Moonbeam is connected to everywhere. But then we're also part of Polkadot, and Polkadot provides a very unique solution to scalability, right? So I always, for whatever reason, I always like to give the example of Zeitgeist, because it's sort of like an application that I understand, sort of like an application on Zeitgeist, right? So Zeitgeist provide prediction markets, and so they instead of having a smart contract development for prediction markets, which is very convoluted, you can just say, okay, I'm gonna have a blockchain that is gonna provide prediction markets. So it's very specific, and it's very efficient doing prediction markets. So now, if you build on top of Moonbeam, you're gonna have a very efficient prediction market blockchain, really accessible, thanks to Polkadot and thanks to XCM, right? And so imagine you now are building an application on top of, not Moonbeam, but on top of Polygon or whatever, right? Okay. And you want to access this prediction market that is very efficient, right, and very decentralized. You can do it through Moonbeam, right? Because Polygon and Moonbeam are connected, and then Moonbeam is connected to Zeitgeist via XCM. Okay. And then you have a way to, I love the word automagically, because it's like automatic and magically, to connect this route to get prediction markets on Polygon indirectly, right? And so I think that's where Moonbeam is really well positioned. So it's Ethereum compatible, meaning that, in my opinion, it has the best tech stack to develop with. But it's also really well positioned because it's connected everywhere. So it's like everyone that wants to benefit from Polkadot can use it through Moonbeam. But Moonbeam is also by itself really good in terms of EVM compatibility, and it has access to all the different ecosystems, right? Okay. So I don't really like to focus it on assets, because assets, I think, is just one small use case on the cross-chain possibilities, right? Okay.
So when we're talking about Ethereum and Polkadot, on Twitter there are a lot of statements about Polkadot will be rising more than Ethereum, but but do you think that? How do you think about that? And do you think that Ethereum and Polkadot should coexist because it would be big together?
I don't think, in my opinion, that there's one blockchain that is going to rule them all, right? Yeah. And let me say an example, right? So let's say Ethereum L2s are the way, right? So we're gonna see more and more L2s, right? We're gonna see more and more and more. So at some point you have, and like I said, this is an opinion, right? So you have L2s that are now competing to get their proofs validated on Ethereum, right? While at the same time you have applications built on top of Ethereum that need block space, right? So block space is a very limited resource, right? It's not unlimited. It's very limited, and you have a certain amount of block space in an Ethereum block. So now Ethereum has to battle, or projects on Ethereum have to battle between, for example, Uniswap v3 getting transactions on Ethereum, and then the L2s, right? So at some point, it's going to be saturated again. And so you're going to need other blockchains to sort of like relieve the pressure from like Ethereum. And so I think that everything's going to coexist, right? So it's like saying, is AWS better than Google Cloud or Alibaba Cloud? No, they're going to coexist, and they're going to have different markets, and they're going to have different utilities, and they're going to have different people and communities, right? At the end of the day, there is place to coexist in blockchain. So I think Polkadot is going to be a niche, not a niche, but a blockchain to sort of like for app-specific chains that are really scalable. Ethereum is going to be the place where the security is going to be the top thing, right? And highly secure applications are going to live, and they're going to have different blockchains targeting different niche, different communities. So I don't like the phrase is like, you know, Polkadot is like Ethereum killer, or Ethereum it's like the thing. I think it's like in this world where we still need to adopt 1 billion people on blockchain, there's no one blockchain to rule them. At least today, there's no one blockchain to rule them all.
I agree. So talking about the role of the whole industry, right now there are a lot of new DeFi use cases, and also NFTs. So how you think that Moonbeam crosschain interoperability features would like impact scalability and performance of Polkadot when we're talking about new use cases outside this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I'm gonna divide it in like 2 answers, right? So the first one is like, if you wanna, for example, create applications that benefit inside of the app chain specific use case that Polkadot provides, Moonbeam is probably the best place, right? Because like I said, it's Ethereum compatible. Ethereum, it's like the best tech stack out there, and so on.
Yeah.
So that's one quick answer, right? The other answer is a bit more complex, in the sense that we agree that the future is multi-chain, right? And so when the future is multi-chain, you got to start thinking about not saying, I am going to deploy to Moonbeam, I'm going to deploy to Polygon, I'm going to deploy to Avalanche. You should say, and this is going to sound very cliche, it's like, I'm going to deploy to blockchain, right? And you have to deploy within a strategy that you can scale to adopt every single blockchain out there to your project. And this is what we mean with connected contracts or cross-chain applications, which is like, instead of saying, I'm going to deploy to one specific chain, I'm going to deploy a set of contracts in one chain, and then I want to deploy other contracts so that my hub, my main contracts, it's aware, and everyone else in BNB, in Avalanche, in Polygon, can access my project, that the main contracts are in Moonbeam, right? So that is the core principle of connected contracts, that everything is accessible, and everything, you should start thinking about smart contract deployments that are natively doing that. Because if not, you're just basically limiting yourself to a very specific market by a very specific blockchain, right? And so let's go back to the example of NFTs, right? So on NFTs, let's say you are on BNB, I'm on Avalanche, and I want to give you an NFT.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, hey Chris, come to Avalanche so I can give you my NFT. That's not really correct, right? So what we could do is say, okay, from BNB or from Avalanche, I could say, hey, I want to give this NFT to Chris because I like him. I don't know. We had a few beers. I want to just give him something or whatever, right? So imagine an NFT application in which from Avalanche, I have an interface. It's like, oh, okay, you want to buy this NFT and you want to give it to Chris that it's in BNB and so on. And so basically that executes a call that goes to Moonbeam. Moonbeam is able to understand it and say, okay, Alberto on Avalanche, you paid 100 AVAX or whatever to buy this NFT, and we need to like mint it on BNB and transfer it to Chris. So imagine that happens only with one signature, right? One call from Avalanche. That is where I see the future coming, right? That you have to create applications that are multi-chain aware, that maybe you're using Moonbeam without knowing that you're using Moonbeam, but then everything is cross-chain connected, and you don't have to say, hey Chris, you want my NFT? Come to Avalanche, man. I'm not going there. That doesn't really feel right like true Web3, you know?
Okay.
So yeah.
So when you're talking all these things, thinking of a very popular name right now, Layer Zero.
Yeah.
So how do you differentiate between Moonbeam and Layer Zero?
So they're very different concepts, right? So like Moonbeam is an L1. It's a blockchain to build applications on top of, right?
Yeah.
So you can grab a smart contract, deploy it, and that's it. Layer Zero itself, like the project Layer Zero, it's a bridge. It's a way to pass information from one blockchain to the other. They don't have a blockchain. A lot of these are called general message passing protocols. So protocols that pass a message between one blockchain and the other. So a lot of general message passing protocols have their own blockchain, but that's only because they need to be able to move a message from blockchain A to blockchain B, and they need to be like the intermediate, like the one that says, okay, this message is valid. Polkadot is very different because parachains already trust Polkadot, they can rely on Polkadot to be able to prove that the message was sent, okay? But in this case, Layer Zero, Axelar, Wormhole, and Hyperlane, they're all like middlemans when moving a message from layer blockchain A to blockchain B. So I would say, generally speaking, Moonbeam a lot of times, because we talk so much about cross-connected contracts or connected contracts, they get confused that Moonbeam is a bridge. But no, Moonbeam is an L1 where we really welcome cross-connected applications, right? We don't think like Moonbeam's gonna be the blockchain. Don't go to Polygon, don't go to Avalanche, don't go to BNB. Go everywhere. Just make sure that Moonbeam is at the center of it because we're connected everywhere. It's really cheap to interact with Moonbeam. We have really good developer relations. We have really good documentation. We really have really good support, right? So we're trying to make sure that people understand this idea, and we're not trying to sell you, Moonbeam is the place. But we're trying to sell you, this is the future, and Moonbeam should be part of it because like we're everywhere, and you also have Polkadot to scale your applications, right? So.
So recently, I saw that Moonbeam have a new function called Moonbeam routing liquidity. What is it?
Yeah, so that's I love that question because this goes what we've been talking, right? So remember what I said that the future has to be cross-chain, but it has to be easy from an infrastructure perspective, right? If we go back to the NFT example that I said, if I'm in Avalanche, I don't really have to like, okay, I want to give this NFT to Chris. I have to move to BNB, and then I have to, to be able to give you an NFT. I can do it from Avalanche without having to do anything, right? Yeah. And so part of this idea is that we have to develop solutions that are easy for end users, complicated from a blockchain perspective, but still, possible. And so Moonbeam Router Liquidity, it's an idea of like the Polkadot ecosystem. It's comprised of multiple blockchains, right? And these blockchains that are called parachains, they might not have an EVM. They might not have a bridge, right? But for example, one of our launch partners, or the parachains that we launched this with HydraDX, and they need liquidity because they're an AMM, right? An AMM needs liquidity to provide AMM, right? And so, but they don't have an EVM. So how can they get liquidity if they don't have an EVM? One solution is via XCM, but that you can only get Polkadot liquidity, right? So DOT, glmr, ASTAR, whatever, right? But if you want to get ETH, or if you want to get AVAX tokens, or if you want to get, how do you get it, right? And so right now, Polkadot doesn't have an answer for that. And so we saw that market fit. And so what we launched with Moonbeam Router Liquidity, it's a one-click solution that brings liquidity from all these ecosystems that right now Wormhole is connected to, but Moonbeam Router Liquidity is not bounded to Wormhole. Any other bridge protocol like Axelar, Layer Zero, and Hyperlane, or whatever other the Moonbeam like seller network, if they want to do MRL, Moonbeam Router Liquidity, they can. But right now it's only with Wormhole, right? So how this works is that, let's say I want to bring 1 ETH from Ethereum to HydraDX, right? So a user on Ethereum signs a transaction saying, okay, and the transaction, what's going to happen is that the transaction is going to bring 1 ETH as wrap ETH on Moonbeam, but it's going to come with a payload, with some data. When that gets executed on Moonbeam, at the same time it gets minted, it's one transaction that is atomic, it's instant basically. That wrap ETH that was minted on Ethereum is going to be sent by XCM to HydraDX, to the account that was specified by the user on Ethereum. So it's really cool because if you go to carrier.so, so that was the interface, a front end partner that we use with Wormhole. So you're gonna see like Moonbeam is not there. Well, it is because you can also like bridge to Moonbeam, but you could be okay. I want to send 1 ETH to HydroDX. You just click accept. You just sign a transaction, and Moonbeam is being used, but you don't know that Moonbeam is being used. So that's the whole idea of connected contracts. That you provide complex interoperable scenarios that don't really mean that they're complex for the end user, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really cool because it uses Wormhole's GMP, XCM, multiple blockchains working together to bring good user experience, to bring liquidity to parachains, right?
Okay. So I'm curious, because I don't know, this question would be relevant a little bit because right now, due to the bad market situations and the user base of Polkadot is quite decreased, right? So I don't know if these new functions of Moonbeam would it influence a whole ecosystem in a better way?
Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right? I mean, there was a market fit for this.
Yeah.
For sure, like the current market situation is very tough,
Yeah.
right? But that's across the whole ecosystem. It's not specific to Polkadot. It's not specific to Moonbeam. So what we're trying to build is like the foundational layers to make sure that in the next cycle, like we're well positioned, right? Yeah. So that's, I mean, you got to think not about short term, but about like long term. What is the foundational layer that you're building and you're providing to provide usability long term, right? And so we feel that, for example, Moonbeam routed liquidity was one thing because teams need liquidity, right? And we have USDT on Polkadot, we have USDC coming, but still, even though it's native, it's not easy to get. It's not one click, and that's one of the main major pain points that we've seen. Like USDT on Polkadot has very low TVL. Yeah. Why? Because it's super complicated to get it from statement to whatever parachain, right? And so that's you have to one of the problems that Polkadot has is that it's very complex. Developers shy away from Polkadot because they feel it's very complicated, and we have to start presenting solutions that are super easy for developers so that they can actually feel that they can do it, right? And they can actually provide the solutions that Polkadot is providing.
So, so when Liquidity going around across different blockchains, right? So definitely a very concern will appear, like about user experience, because users have to change to different kinds of wallet. So how you guys will intend to solve that?
Yeah, so there are two answers to that, I think. So on one end, Moonbeam provides, so we have an EVM, right? Yeah. Our EVM, because we use Substrate, this Polkadot SDK, our EVM is very modular, or our Ethereum compatibility is very modular. So we can actually do things that provide better user experience. Not to get very technical, one of the things that we provide is a batching functionality in which an end user can grab a bunch of transactions and put them into one single transaction, right? Why this is cool for end user experience? Because imagine you're playing a game, right? And you go to a store and you want to buy a helmet, an armor, a sword, and a shield. In the true Web3 world of today, that would be 4 transactions, right? Because if each of them is an NFT, you need 4 transactions, and then you need to sort of like mint 4 NFTs that represent these items, right? That's really poor UX. Like, okay, I want to buy my shop, and you're spending like 5 minutes just waiting for the transaction. That's not good UX. And so on Moonbeam, we provide a function that you're able to say, okay, I want to get this NFT, this NFT, this NFT, this NFT, and then bash them into a single transaction that is signed by the user. The user just says one time, okay, this is my badge, my checkout card, right? Buy, and that's it. Only one transaction, right? And so that's just one example of the power that we offer to developers because we use this modular framework called Substrate or Polkadot SDK. The other way of thinking about it is that this is more internal to Polkadot, and I think this is a true advantage that Polkadot has is that, and I talk about it in Polkadot Decoded back in July, that it's called remote origin. So Polkadot has a way in which you as an end user can control accounts in any parachain or the relay chain without having to change your wallet to that blockchain, right? this is cool because, for example, I was talking with a team called I forgot the name, but they provide like aggregation for like yield solutions or positions across Polkadot, right? And so I told them, hey, what about you guys sort of like offer this in a way that, hey, I maybe from Moonbeam, I maybe can get advantage from a position in A-Star without having to go, okay, let me transfer my assets, let me change my wallet, let me go here and then do it, right? So from Moonbeam using glmr, I can say, oh, okay, this actual position is better on A-Star than Moonbeam. But from Moonbeam without, with my ledger, because in Moonbeam you can use ledger, right? You can just like take advantage of that. So that provides better user experience because bridging and changing chains is just a problem. It provides really bad experience. And so that is very specific to Polkadot, which I think is great. And we're actually using that technology in Moonbeam routed liquidity just to provide better user experience. But I think overall, the main point of this is that we got to stop thinking about changing chains. Like saying, like I said before, okay, you have to go to 5 different chains and move around. We got to start thinking about better experiences, applications that provide better experiences for cross-chain integrations, right? So.
Okay, so when you're launching this function, so what your plan to approach end user and who would be the important partners to go with?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, like outside of Polkadot, it's important to have good GMP protocols. So these are like I said before, wormhole, Axelar, layer 0, hyperlane. Our idea is to provide the main infrastructure for developers to build on top of. We don't say our bridge is X or our bridge is Y. So it's like, hey, developers, we have these. You can choose whichever you prefer, right? And then on the Polkadot side, XCM, right? That's a native sort of solution to move within Polkadot. And so now the idea is like, how do you can connect the two to make sure that people get access to parachains through Moonbeam, and parachains in Polkadot can get access to other ecosystems through Moonbeam, right?
Okay. So before we end the conversations, do you have any cool updates and anything that relating to Moonbeam Network that you want to tell the communities, Polkadot communities?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're really excited about Moonbeam routed liquidity. We're expanding the solution beyond Hydra DX because there have been a lot of teams interested in the solution. So we're really pushing and making sure that we sort of like get a lot of teams onboarded. We're really making strides sort of to like try to like focus on different areas. We're still very bullish on like this idea of connected applications, and I think that the next thing for Polkadot has to be how can we make sort of like applications on Moonbeam access all these services that Polkadot provide in a very easy way, right? That we don't have to say, okay, you have to build this XCM message. It's very complex. And so there has to be a way that I can say, hey, Moonbeam has prediction markets, automation, liquid derivatives, and things like that without having to sell the idea of like Polkadot and XCM. So, right now we're working on different sort of like strategizing around like this cross-chain connectivity and how we can improve that experience for end users. And we're also thinking about account abstraction, which is this like Ethereum concept that is very popular right now. So we want to make sure that that's available for teams on Moonbeam, and also making sure that they understand how Moonbeam is way better, and it's not just another Ethereum compatible blockchain. So
yeah, definitely. I would say that this is one of the greatest interviews that I have like since beginning. We did Polkadot Insider. And thanks for being here today. And
yeah, cheers, man. Sorry that mine is almost over. So
yeah,
but thanks a lot for the invitation, Chris. I can come back anytime, and it's really good to do this in person, right? Because it's better to do it in person than like over in the internet. So
yeah,
appreciate it. Yep, no worries. Cheers.